Welcome to today's session. The purpose of this panel discussion is to provide attendees with a possible framework to assess the potential business impact of Quickbase within their organization. We'll reflect on how Quickbase customers, view the business benefits supported by Quickbase. The panel was conceived for a specific purpose of helping you discuss the net benefits of Quickbase as a solution with any of your coworkers. The discussion should prompt you to further explore the current and future value of Quickbase. I'm Christine Anderson. I'm a customer success manager here at Quickbase, and I'll be monitoring today's discussion. We will be taking questions throughout the session, and at the end, we will answer some of those live, and we'll answer some of those via text. I'd like to welcome our panelists to today's discussion. Our first guest is Forrest Parker. Forrest joins us from CRH. CRH manufactures and supplies top quality building materials and products used for the construction and maintenance and housing for commercial products. Their materials and products are used extensively for construction products of all sizes throughout the world. Forrest, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, what you do at CRH, and how long you've been there?
Sure. Thanks, Christine. So I've been with CRH for 11 years now. I started there after I graduated with a degree in construction management. So initially I was working for the construction department, but then in 2016 I actually joined the IT department, and I've been using Quickbase basically since I started there, but a lot more in the latter years. So.
Oh, great. Well, welcome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Our second panelist is Kelly Hayes. Kelly uses Quickbase at CCI Systems. CCI Systems is an employee-owned communication solution provider that provides access to reliable, secure, high-speed data services. Kelly, can you tell us a little bit about your background, yourself, and what you do at CCI?
Absolutely. Thanks, Christine. I have been with CCI Systems for about 10 years now. I started as an administrative assistant and just sort of fell into the role of Quickbase development about 6 years ago with our very first app. I do not have a coding background. My background is English literature. So I don't have any experience in that arena, but am, working my way up. I've worked my way up to a senior business analyst role. Much of my time now is spent developing in Quickbase and training other Quickbase developers at CCI.
Wonderful. That's a great example of how you don't need to be a developer or coder. Thank you, Kelly, and welcome to our panel today. And last on our panelists, we have Brian Simpson. Brian works here at Quickbase as a manager of the customer success group. Brian, can you tell us a little bit more about your role at Quickbase?
I joined Quickbase over 3.5 years ago to serve as part of the customer success team. Spent the last 20 years or so working in the field of data management, leading a professional services team. Here at Quickbase, I'm in a unique position here that I oftentimes get to hear how businesses and how many industries look at the value they derive from Quickbase platform. So happy to be here, happy to have this discussion.
Great. Well, thank you again for joining us today. Let's start with Kelly. I wanted to ask you, I think it'd be great if you could tell us a little bit more about your Quickbase community there within CCI. Who uses Quickbase within the organization?
Yeah, a lot of the engineering department where I work uses Quickbase. I would say more than 95% of the department uses Quickbase on a daily basis. We have a relatively small community of developers at CCI, sprinkled throughout the company. Primarily, again, in the engineering department, we have a team of 1 business analyst manager, and in addition to myself, 4 other business analysts that all work within Quickbase all day.
And where did Quickbase originate from? Did it start with a particular group?
It did. It started in our engineering department, actually. We started with a relatively small project tracking app that has grown into a very large and in charge app that continues to be used today.
Great. And would you say that a lot of your builders, are any of them builder certified, or are they just learning on their own? Or
a lot of us are builder certified. That's actually part of the job leveling program that we have at CCI for business analysts, is to become certified.
Okay, great. Forrest, I'm going to ask you the same question. Can you tell us more about your Quickbase community there, what it looks like, and who uses Quickbase within the organization?
Sure. I guess with that, just a little bit about CRH. We are an enterprise of multiple companies throughout the U.S. and Canada, and so because of that, we back in 2009, they were doing a national initiative to implement certain best practices, and one of those best practices was to use a Quickbase application. And that was like the first Quickbase app that we had. And that's where I first learned about it. So initially it was just users of that app. And then there was really just like one developer. And that's the way it was for quite a few years. Since then, we actually we realized that we could get a lot more value out of Quickbase if we had more people developing in Quickbase. It's such an easy tool for people to learn and pick up on that as Kelly mentioned, you don't have to have a developer background to build in it. So in 2019, I led an IT initiative to sponsor a group called the CRH Citizen Developers. And so with that, they can join that community. And once they join, then they can become a developer in Quickbase. They can build their own apps. And we provide for them an initial training on how to use Quickbase. And then we also provide some structure like governance around, just so that we know what is being built and by whom. Since this is a program that's sponsored by IT, ultimately IT is responsible for supporting all of the applications that are developed by the citizen developers. But at this point, we've got about 150 citizen developers that have joined this program. And we've built a pretty large number of applications that are being used throughout our business. So it's a great community.
Are they able to help each other so they can see what other apps are already being built or who's certified? So they're able to communicate within the community?
Yes.
Or is it mostly just for IT?
No, sorry. No, the community is for, these group of people that are within the business, and some of our citizen developers actually are within the IT organization as well. We've got business analysts or people within like the QA department that, they have certain things where they're like, hey, that'd be great if I had an app to track what I'm working on. But as far as helping each other, we do a monthly meeting with all of our citizen developers, and in that monthly meeting, we pick out somebody who's built an app and allow them to do what we call a solution spotlight. So in that segment of that meeting, they're sharing with the group, I guess first and foremost, what problem they solved, but then we also give them a chance to just talk about some like cool things that they did, like a specific problem that they had while building the Quickbase app, so that they can share some tips and tricks with the other builders. So.
That's great. Sounds wonderful. Thank you for sharing that with us. We'll move to the next question, and it's all around financial planning. As with any organization, before they go out and purchase any application or solution, they need to budget for it or write some type of business plan for it. Well, the same holds true for Quickbase, and you and your peers often find yourself exploring, how do I determine the value of Quickbase? So let's start with, when does the understanding of value of Quickbase begin? Forrest, let's start with you. When does it start? Does it start in the beginning, the renewal? When would you say that there's the beginnings of looking at the Quickbase values starts?
Yeah, that's a great question. Obviously when we're trying to figure out the contract with Quickbase, then we're thinking about it. Then we're thinking about like, okay, what's the cost here? What value are we getting out of it? But well before that, I would say that it starts with every use case. I mean, the beauty of Quickbase is not that you're solving a specific thing. It's, I mean, the sky's the limit. We can solve, I mean, we don't know what the next thing that we're going to solve, right? And so every time we come up with a new idea, then we think like, hey, would we add value with this? You know, and there are certain things that we look at. Can we save time? You know, can we increase sales with this? I mean, there are a lot of things, but every application, we analyze what value are we getting out of that. I think that's really the beginning.
Okay. And what about any other compelling events that drive it? After you do it in the beginning, is there a middle or end, or how often would you say that you review apps on a yearly basis?
So, yeah, I mean, every year as we're doing our budgeting, then we want to make sure that we've got we want to include Quickbase in our budget process. Because we are releasing apps, I mean, throughout the year, then what we do within our as part of the governance, I should say, within our citizen developer community, before an app is released, then we ask the citizen developer to actually go through an exercise of saying like, hey, what value do you think this application is adding? And we just say, hey, show us give us your estimated yearly value is the number that we shoot for. So we have them give an actual number. And like I say, that can come from time savings or other things. But then we ask them to describe like, okay, but you know, what's the story behind that number? And that is given when they first release the app. But at that point, it's really just theoretical. But then every year, a year after the app is released, then we ask them to go check in on that again and say like, hey, just do a reevaluation. Look at, I mean, are you getting the value that you thought that you were? Are you getting more? But give us an update on that. And that's a yearly thing. As long as that app is live, then that number should be updated every year.
Great. Sounds like a good strategy to me. We all know that processes change, businesses change, and certainly Quickbase adds functionality that could also boost some of your application performance.
Yeah, for sure.
Kelly, when does your evaluation of Quickbase begin?
I would say it starts the moment that you start considering that first app, and it continues throughout the building of that app, throughout the maintenance of the app, really throughout the life cycle of that app. We have an app that we've developed at CCI that is called our Continuous Improvement and Process Automation app. And in that app, we can actually track the return on investment of all of the improvements that are made to existing apps. So any end user can come in, submit an idea for an improvement, and we're able to track the return on investment of that change that gets implemented. So it's really a constant cycle that we're looking at all the time, not just when the app is first conceived, but really as often as we can.
Is there any quarterly or yearly goals or that come out of that app that remind you to review that? Or I know you look at it all the time, but are there notifications to review?
We do have notifications.
Okay.
Yep.
On a certain time frame?
We do. And we make sure to ensure that those ROIs are still valid, because of course things change, you know, the value of an app changes, and maybe we're seeing increased value from it. So we can update that accordingly.
Okay. Are there any other compelling events that cause you to look at the value?
Of course, budget season is always a key. We're always looking at, you know, are we making sure to derive the value that we're expecting from this? And, you know, each year it just continues to grow, and we find different use cases, and it's very exciting.
Great. Well, thank you. Brian, have you observed working with any other customers at Quickbase? Are there any additional compelling events that hasn't been mentioned that drive the evaluation?
I think Kelly and Forrest touched upon the key events, your upcoming renewal, certainly budget planning and forecasts. And of course, anytime you think you may need to modify your Quickbase contract, and that includes, adding new user seats or just entitlements, but certainly want to consider it during the life cycle of the application. Forrest alluded to that. Apps with a change in the number of users, whether that's up or down, expanded use across your organization, and if any integrations were added, be they pipelines or APIs. So you want to stop and recalculate at those times. And I think oftentimes it's thought of as a retrospective look, but it can and should be a prospective look at address any future needs or any future value.
Great. Well, thank you. We'll move on to the next question. We often hear business analysts say that when they look at the business value of any project, they look at time savings, cost avoidance, organizational efficiencies, and increased revenue. Kelly, I'm going to start with you this time. What was your approach? How did you go about it? And what elements do you capture when you're looking at business value?
Yeah, so in the engineering department, we are very production focused. We want to make sure that employees are being as productive as possible. And so we primarily look at the value of time savings and operational excellence. For example, in one of our apps, we made a change that allowed a task that was repeated 120 times per day to be done 15 minutes faster.
Wow.
Huge time savings there, which ultimately allows us to grow our business further. And in addition to the quantifiable outputs of Quickbase, you also want to look at things like employee engagement and customer delight. Our customers are delighted with the insights that we can get out of Quickbase. They actually want us to use Quickbase more because they love the reporting and the information that comes out of it.
Great. Did you look at any development value? What would happen usually in the past if somebody wanted an application? Would you go to a consultant? Would you build it internally? Would you purchase the solution? Was there any value there?
Sure, there definitely was. We look at the speed of implementation. Quickbase apps can be developed so rapidly. Another example is we developed an app over the course of one weekend, and it was put into place immediately. We saw immediate benefit from it. Whereas, a solution going through IT would have to be vetted and developed, programmed. It might take weeks or months as opposed to a matter of a few days. And that helps us just to continue moving at the speed of our business and to meet our customers' expectations.
And there's also cost avoidance where then you don't have to purchase another solution, so you can avoid additional supplier costs.
Absolutely.
Great. And how about the maintenance or the application upkeep of Quickbase? Is there a value there that you've measured between other suppliers?
There is a value in the maintenance of Quickbase. And again, it goes back to that rapid application development model where we can make changes on a dime.
Right.
If our customer requires a new piece of information to be tracked or a new report, we can make those changes so quickly and really, see the immediate value from that.
Sounds like a lot of productivity and operational efficiencies for sure.
Yes.
Thank you, Kelly. Forrest, I'm going to ask you the same question. What did you look at when you looked at factors of considering value? What elements would you say went into your decisions?
I think we started out and it was really just around whatever value we could derive from the individual applications. When we first implemented Quickbase, somebody said, "Hey, we need to solve for X," and they built an app to do that. And then there was value that came from that. And for quite a few years, that's the way we did it. When I joined the IT department, I kind of took Quickbase with me. And at that point we said, hey, we could, this is a chance for us to build things faster. We actually have a development team within our IT department traditional developers, right? Full stack developers. And we said, hey, certain solutions or certain requests that come in, we could build those in Quickbase and we can just build them faster. So it was still a service that we were providing from the IT department to build the solution. And I think so then there's additional value there. But then this latest phase that we're in with the Citizen Developer Program, where we're providing Quickbase as a platform, there's so much value that comes from that, where now we're empowering our people in the business that they essentially don't have to go through IT to get the solution. Now they can do it themselves. And there's just so much work, and once again, Kelly alluded to this, but there's so much work involved with with a traditional development. You have the person who understands the problem deeply. I mean, they're living it every day, and they have to communicate that to a business analyst, who then writes up requirements that then goes to the developer. I mean, there's so many. I mean, obviously, it's a system that works, but there's so many chances for miscommunication and what you would maybe call like red tape, that it becomes difficult for those things that are smaller, right? Mm-hmm. And so some things are small enough that people are just like, it's not even worth it. You know, I'm not even going to try to go through that process. Whereas if you've got a group of people who are like, hey, I am the person with the problem. I'm also the BA and I'm the developer. I can do this over the weekend. And I think within our organization, we are pretty good at tracking the value that we get out of every single application, the effect that it has on the end users. And that's where we derive that estimated yearly value. I think that we do have some maturing to like where we can grow in calculating our value around like, well, what are the cost savings that we're getting just from having them develop themselves? So, I mean, obviously there's value there, but maybe we don't quantify it right now. But that is something that we can do.
Are you tracking the time savings of before and after of before Quickbase? It was taking so many days, like Kelly was, and now it's taking less hours or time.
Yeah. So like, and like I say, on each individual app, when we ask our citizen developers to calculate that yearly value. And I think time savings is probably the easiest one, and that's probably the most common one. I think that we could branch out a little bit and maybe give our citizen developers a few more ideas of like, hey, think about this area, think about this other one, where they can calculate the benefit of the app itself. But yes, as far as comparing before and after, part of our governance process is that we say, hey, please explain to us what the previous process was, and then explain what the new process is. And then with that, they can say like, okay, yeah, we think it took, this process took an hour each time, and now we think we can get it down to 45 minutes or whatever it is. So yeah, that comparison is a great way to track that value.
And I'm sure being in the building and construction industry, there's lots of compliance rules. I'm curious, you must be using applications to measure compliance, so that must help you as well avoid a digital solutions cost to go buy a solution to manage just compliance there for the auditors.
Sure. Yeah, a lot of we have found that a lot of our safety departments in the different companies that are part of CRH, they're spinning up getting a lot of citizen developers to build applications to track safety metrics. But another area that we see quite a bit is just being in the construction industry. People are out in the field, and so then there were a lot of paper forms, and we talk about these forms of the papers that are like kicking around at the floorboards of a truck, and then eventually they make their way into the office, and now we can have them just bring it up on their phone and submit it right away. So a lot of value in automating some of those processes.
Great. Brian, what have you observed with other customers? Is there any additional information that they've pulled out when looking at the value?
Yeah. I think we heard from both Forrest and Kelly about the organizational improvements of the workplace value. especially around time saving. So it's worth noting that any time saved completing or improving a process suggests you could then start other projects or other tasks. So how many of those projects or tasks in your backlog can you address with available time? So where's the value there? What, can you quantify that value as well? And I think it's worth highlighting again the company benefits for both time and cost savings associated with updating and maintaining applications. To put a metric around it, it's the difference between 1 and 2 weeks of developers' time in Quickbase, probably versus 8 to 10 weeks of a developer time in any other source. So updating and maintaining applications is critical. But I think our experience really working with a bunch of other customers, you'll never see a budget for fines, penalties, compliance violations that you can point to. Not a balance sheet's not going to carry that. So it's hard to quantify those values, and you can't quantify the customer value, the customer delight, as Kelly pointed out, or improve employee morale. So at times it can be difficult taking direct credit for increased sales or revenue, but you may have to accept some indirect credit for that.
Great insights. Thanks, Brian. Kelly, was there any challenges that you faced when seeking out this question of where do I find the value, and did anything surprise you during this process?
What surprised me during the process, part of it I alluded to already with the customer delight. I was very impressed at how our customers love our use of Quickbase. But also another one of the less easily quantifiable insights is our employee engagement and employee satisfaction. Rather than, suffering downtime and having to wait for an old Access database to load or wait for an Excel spreadsheet to become available, they are able to stay productive, stay focused, stay working, and stay happy because they can go into Quickbase, they can easily see all the information that they need at their fingertips. There's no hunting and pecking for information that, might be in somewhere that is not as intuitive or, hidden in multiple places on a server somewhere. It's all housed in one central location. They know where to go to get what they need. And like I said, it helps to keep them productive and focused on what they need to accomplish. So that was one thing that I think surprised me going through this exercise, was just seeing how much employee satisfaction really played into it.
Yes, it's an important measurement we have to take into consideration.
Yes.
Forrest, how about you? Any hidden value you surfaced when you were going through this exercise?
Yeah, I think very, very similar to what Kelly was talking about. The value of empowering people within your business is hard to measure, but it's very real. I remember I was taking a class and the teacher, he talked about there are people who work inside the box, and then he realized that, hey, if I want to be the person making the box, right? And that just like really stuck with me, and I'm like, yeah, I want to be that person. And I think with Quickbase, and this could go to any rapid application development platform. You are empowering people to kind of make those rules. They say, hey, I see a problem and I want to make it better. And then we give them the ability to do that. And when you do that, you're happier, right? I mean, you feel good about it. And not only are you happier, but you're engaged in the process. You want it to be successful. And if you can increase the number of people in your organization that are engaged and want your business to be successful, then your business is going to be more successful. So that is like definitely one of those hidden values. Just one other thing that's not totally related, but I think within our organization, and I've said it a few times, we're an enterprise of companies within the US. And so there are that type of people, those people are trying to, figure things out, kind of scattered throughout. And so if we are not, what we found is if we're not providing that platform for them, then they're going to be finding it themselves. So they do a quick Google search. Hey, how do I build an app? And then there's 20 things that pop up, and they sign up for the free trial, and then they're off and running. and then their boss is like, hey, this is amazing. But then from an IT perspective, that's difficult because we've got this sprawl of applications and platforms. And so getting behind that and saying, hey, let's consolidate this into one. There are so many benefits that you get from that. You get enterprise licensing that way. You also, I mean, we talked a little bit about just the community in general. I mean, if you've got 20 different platforms out there that people are using, well, now they feel like they need to like compete and say why one is better than the other so that people will adopt theirs rather than the other one. But if you're all using the same one, then you're all on the same team. And you can grow much quicker that way. So that's another value there. Just the consolidation, I think, is important.
Great. So if you had to look back, how successful would you say that your approach was? Is there anything that you would change your ad going forward? I know you mentioned quite a bit, but
yeah. So I would say that like we definitely have room for growth, and we've gotten some feedback from our citizen developers specifically when we ask them, hey, what is the value? Some of them are just like, well, I think for them it's like it's clearly better, right? I mean, it's clearly better the way that we're doing it now, but to be able to explain that and quantify it is difficult. And right now we've just kind of got free form. It's like, give us a number, give us a description of why it's better. I think where we can improve is to give them a little more guidance, not to say it for them or put words in their mouth, but say, hey, here are some options of like areas where value can be added. So choose which ones you think apply and then describe it. Even just that, I think, will make it a little bit easier for them to give us the information that we need.
great. Kelly, how about you? If you had to look back, how successful do you think your process was and what would you change or do differently?
I think overall our process was successful. One thing that I would say I would do differently if given the opportunity is to implement our continuous improvement app immediately from the get-go and allow our end users to give those suggestions and help really shape the future of the apps. Because, you know, as Forrest alluded to, employee empowerment is huge, and you're empowering people to really affect change in the products that they use every day and be able to say, hey, I suggested that, I did that, you know, I influenced that.
Mhm.
And you really can't discount the importance of that. So ultimately, I would say implement some kind of a tracking mechanism, preferably an app, that allows you to capture those suggestions and capture that return on investment and really show immediately from the get-go all of the value that you're getting from the product.
Great. So this will be the last question as we wrap up this series. And Kelly, we'll start with you. In closing, is there any guidance that you would provide with our audience overall, that anything that you would either re-highlight that you've already stated or anything new that you would suggest if they were going through this?
I would suggest just making sure to listen to your end users. They're going to be your best source of ideas. They're really going to help you to improve these apps in a way that is meaningful. They're the ones that are using the apps day in and day out, and they are going to be able to give you suggestions that you haven't even thought of yet. That would be my advice. And like I said, implementing that continuous improvement application to capture those ideas is a great, great solution.
Absolutely. And hopefully getting these end users trained so they can build their own apps, correct?
Yes, definitely.
And Forrest, in closing, what advice would you have for the audience when going through creating a business impact value for their organization?
So very similar to what Kelly said. I mean, if you don't have a way to keep track of these things, then you will lose sight of it. And so there are just so many benefits of just knowing what's out there and what value it's bringing. Quickbase, it can spread a little bit like wildfire if you're not careful, and that can be a really good thing, but it can also be a liability. And so if you're getting started, don't overcomplicate it, but set something up that says, hey, I've got, I just need to know exactly what's out there and whether it's being used or not. A great way to do that is through the admin console sync, which is probably a subject of another Empower session. But that's a good way to bring in your apps and just know what's out there and who owns them, and then you can add other data around that to capture the value. So.
Well, great. This was a great conversation. I want to thank you, Forrest and Kelly and Brian, for your time today. And at this time, we'll open it up for any questions that the audience may have. So we will see if there's any that came into the chat. If anyone has any questions, please go ahead and post your questions to the chat, and we'll have Forrest, Kelly, or Brian answer the question for you.